You're listening to Strange by Nature, your guide to the strange, weird, unbelievable, and improbable wonders of the natural world.
Hello everyone, thanks for being here today. I am Kirk Mona and I am joined today by Rachel Ginza and Victoria Thompson. We are all professional naturalists who together have scoured the world for weird and wonderful wonders just to please your mammalian brain's desire for novelty. Isn't that nice? Let's do this.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. Rachel, how you doing?
I'm doing amazing, Kirk. Vacation has been lovely for me. I had a birthday.
Yeah, you took a little birthday break.
I took a little birthday break. Life is going great. M&A was last weekend. I was so excited to be able to see that and see everybody. So,
none of our listeners know what that is.
That is true. So it's our local naturalist conference, our professional conference. So it happens once a year, and I just love being able to see folks from all over the state and talk about standard practices and geek out with a bunch of nature nerds. So it's so much fun.
It's our people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a chance for all other professional naturalists to get together and hone our craft. So we're all refreshed and back from that.
Mm-hmm.
This week, Rachel, I'm not going to the ocean, and I want to talk about how dying dinosaurs created the world's first farmers.
What?
I thought that might be kind of mysterious. That is indeed.
Those are words. That's a sentence that I wouldn't picture anyone saying out loud at any point in those words in that particular order. What?
Perfect. That was my goal. It's a strange thing to say, but come along with me on a journey, if you will.
All right.
We live in a fragile world, and we take the current state of things as they are right now as like normal and unchanging.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, this could not be further from the truth, right?
Things are constantly changing at all times.
Yes. The balance of life is in constant flux. And change is usually pretty slow, though. So it takes more than a human lifetime. And often we just don't notice the change that's going on. But, hop in a time machine and go back, 10,000 years, go back 1,000,000 years, and things will be very different.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And same for going forward. Things change. Change is constant. And things can change slowly, but they can also...
Sorry.
they what do you say?
I said the irony of that sentence, change is constant.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So things, can change slowly, but they can also change catastrophically. And when they do, it often means death and destruction for some species, but others will arise and take advantage of the opportunity. And in the history of Earth, there have been a few of these cataclysmic events. Few were bigger than the big one on a spring day about 65 million years ago when a 10-kilometer wide asteroid slammed into the Earth and caused what is generally considered to be a very bad day.
Very bad day, bad several years.
Oh, yeah, more than several years probably, right?
Yeah.
So this is when the asteroid hit, wiped out the dinosaurs and much of everything else. Certainly anything near the impact site was just vaporized.
Just
so that's
gone, yeah.
That may be a blessing right there. But the whole of the world was affected when this happened. So much material was thrown into the atmosphere that sunlight was reduced around the world and plants just started to die on the other side of the world. And fossil records show plants died off globally after the event, with 50% of all plant species on Earth going extinct after this event. Now that probably took some time, but
but still,
that is wild.
Significant. Like you imagine going into the grocery store and half of it just being gone.
Yeah.
Or walking outside and half the plants and everything outside are just gone.
Yep. It was, devastating. So that's not great, clearly. Where we are right here in Minnesota, you and I both right now are in Minnesota, there's ongoing a huge die-off of ash trees from the invasive emerald ash borer. We have approximately 1 billion ash trees in the state of Minnesota,
Mhm.
and the ash borer is likely going to kill nearly every single one of them.
Yeah, it's
This has happened in
unfortunate.
other states. We're right in the middle of it right now. It's real bad.
Mhm.
But the dying trees,
Ugh.
they're really bad for a lot of reasons. But like for woodpeckers, they're probably pretty excited about it,
Yeah,
right?
dying trees,
'Cause-
more bugs. Woohoo!
Yeah, lots of ash borer infested trees are out there. In turn, there's lots of woodpeckers that are going to gobble them up. And the more sick the trees get, the more probably even other species can kind of move in and start attacking them, and the woodpeckers can eat them too. So, negative for one species, the ash, positive for others like the woodpeckers. It is a bad situation, but again, winners and losers. And so the same thing probably happened after the asteroid hit. It's interesting to think about like the short-term winners, though, just after an asteroid impact. Most of the plants on Earth are dying. I mean, eventually half of those species will go extinct, but even the ones that aren't extinct yet at this point, like
Are suffering.
they're suffering hard, right? Some of these we think very few of them survived.
It's like
And
me
they
at the end of the
just enough
summer,
survived.
just like kind of limping over the end.
from teaching, is that what you mean? Teaching
Yeah.
summer camps and stuff? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So basically, most plants on Earth are dying. 75% of the animal species have been wiped out,
My God.
especially the big herbivores that are usually eating those plants. So there's just a lot of dead plant material piling up.
There's a lot
so,
of dead critters lying about too.
Yeah. Is this a good place for anything? Well,
Bacteria.
maybe. Yeah, it was
Fungi.
also a perfect place, bingo,
Yeah.
for fungus. Perfect conditions for fungus to flourish. Dim light. You've got
It is wet, probably.
lots of dead stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's probably a pretty funky smelling planet for a while. And look, if you eat fungus, this might just be your lucky day. Well, it turns out one thing that does eat fungus is ants.
Oh yeah.
So there was a new study that came out last month in the journal Science, and it looked at the relationship between a specific group of ants and the fungus that they eat. I presume, Rachel, you have heard of the leafcutter ants.
I absolutely have heard of leafcutter ants. Like
Yeah.
their name,
So-
they cut leaves.
They do, yeah, it's a good name. Leafcutter ants are considered farmers. So what they do is they go out in the forest and they cut like little circles of plant material out of the leaves. It's like bigger than they are. And they kind of carry these back in these long lines to their colony. But they don't eat these leaves. What they're doing is they take them back to their nests where they cultivate, just the exact right conditions to have a specific species of fungus grow on those leaves. They then tend to the fungus like farmers in ways that we still do not understand. And they get it to grow in ways that are not normal. So they essentially get it to grow into these clusters of like sugar-filled regions that some people have compared to like mini clusters of grapes.
Whoa.
We really don't know how they do that. If we take this same fungus and grow it in the lab, it does not behave this way. So they're doing something to like literally cultivate this fungus to not just grow, but to grow differently than it would if they weren't there.
That's wild.
Which is wild. The purposeful cultivation of a food crop is why we consider leaf cutter ants to be the OG farmers of the world. They literally invented agriculture long before humans.
Yeah. Jeez.
So until recently, this was probably we thought this was probably a fairly recent event, at least geologically, historically speaking,
Right.
for when they started to harvest the fungi like that. But one of the really cool things these researchers did is they looked at 475 different species of fungus that are cultivated by ants across the Americas today. And by looking carefully at the genes and comparing all the different mutations that have taken place, they were able to actually figure out that like these fungus all had a common ancestor, and then figure out by like how fast the mutations pile up, how long ago was that common ancestor fungus.
Right.
And the really cool thing that came about from their research is they realized that this fungi probably all came about to start to be harvested 65 million years ago.
Whoa.
So right at the time of the asteroid impact, which
Are
you go
these things related?
coincidence? Yeah, probably, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's likely what was happening is that this fungus was absolutely flourishing after the impact, the years after the impact, because all that dying plant material is out there. And the ants, while they likely already were able to eat fungus, as part of their diet, it
Right.
probably wasn't like the only thing they ate or like the main thing they ate.
Yeah.
But because all the foods were dying off, this probably now became
Like a
the
primary
only food. Yeah. And so these ants eventually became completely dependent on this fungus for their survival. And likewise, as time went on, the fungus also became dependent on the ants for survival. I can kind of imagine as plants are becoming more and more scarce, for a good long while, if the ants keep on bringing plant material directly to these established fungal colonies, that could have been one way how this dependence came about.
Yeah.
So that's just absolutely fascinating.
Wild.
Humans didn't invent modern agriculture until around 12,000 years ago. Ants beat us to it by millions of years.
What is it, like at least 50 million years? Jeez.
Well, I mean, look, if it's 56 million years ago and we invented agriculture 12,000 years ago, you can still just say it was 50. They beat us by 56 million years.
You're right.
And you still be right, because we don't know the exact date of the asteroid impact, probably within the accuracy of 12,000 years. That's probably within the margin of error, right? So yeah, they basically they beat us by
a lot.
65 million years.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's amazing, and it's strange to think that what first led to the creation of agriculture on Earth wasn't human ingenuity, but rather ant ingenuity, and the fact that all life on Earth was nearly destroyed by a rock from outer space.
That's insane, Kirk.
So when you see leafcutter ants, maybe they live, where you are, or I know like one of the zoos nearby where I live has a whole leafcutter ant colony that they keep alive. So if you're watching a film and you see them, whenever you come across leafcutter ants in whatever way, just realize that you are witnessing something that goes back to the time of the death of the dinosaurs and the impact of that asteroid. That's what set up the conditions to begin what you're seeing when those ants are carrying those leaves, which I think is super cool.
So amazing.
It's super cool in two ways. It's super cool that that's like what is going on and how it happened. It's even more cool that we are starting to be able to have the technology and the resources to figure that out. Right?
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
Almost some of the new research techniques. It's not having a time machine, but it's allowing us ways to kind of peer back in time and unlock some of the mysteries of how these things happened, which that to me is just magical. I absolutely love it. Some of my sources for this was Penn State and Minnesota Environmental Quality Board, phys.org, and the journal Science.
Oh, man, it's topics like that, they just remind me how cool and amazing science is. It's all about learning. Like we think we know something and then we can just change our minds and like or not even change our minds. We look at the facts and see if anything has changed, and we're able to change our perception of the world based on the facts that we're learning. That's so cool.
Yeah, and sometimes, like I said, sometimes change our mind too, right?
Right.
Science is totally willing to say, you know what, we're wrong about that. We're going to revise that. And I think that's an amazing, even if you, dear listener, are not a scientist, I think cultivating that scientific mindset of always being willing to say, you know what, I'm wrong. And thank you. Thank the person who proved you wrong. Because thank you. You just made me smarter.
Yeah.
Because now I know that I was wrong and I'm no longer wrong, as opposed to digging in and going, no, I'm going to cling to, like I'm right, and it's like, no, like, being willing to admit when you're wrong.
That is such a big strength.
It is. And it's so freeing to be able to say like, hey, I'm smarter now. Thank you.
Yeah.
You corrected me, and now I'm a smarter person. That makes
I
me a
love
better
not
person, and I
knowing
appreciate
things.
that. Yeah. I mean, I
That's why
love
we
knowing
do
things
this
too. But
I also love knowing
it's like,
things. Yeah. But I love
learning things. Yeah.
I love learning. I love finding out new things. And if I knew everything, then how dull would that be? You know?
Well, you wouldn't listen to this show.
Exactly.
All right, well, we are going to go to a break, and when we come back, everyone gets to learn something new from
Yeah,
Rachel.
we do.
Sweet.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. So, Kirk, you've covered migration a couple times on the podcast in regards to birds.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
I'm going to step on
and
your toes a little bit this week. Sort of.
Sweet.
Sort of. Okay.
Okay.
So, we've talked about migration. There's quite a few ways and methods that birds migrate. But a big thing that can be really tough, and we've talked about this, is birds who cross oceans or transatlantic. That is so hard to be able to do. And a lot of times in several different spaces, especially in the ocean, if you can't swim or you don't have the ability to take off from water, you have to have land to be able to take off. You have more minimal ways to cross the ocean. And it's more dangerous to be in the ocean anyway. You're more at risk for something coming up under you and getting you, right?
Oh, yeah.
As a bird. Now, in the Atlantic Ocean, pretty much smack dab in the middle between South America and Africa, are three or four little islands. They are part of the Nightingale Islands, which is a nice little archipelago. There are three islands, and they're uninhabited, and they get visited by millions of birds annually because they are the most isolated islands on the planet. They are literally in the middle between South America and Africa, and there's like nothing else around them. There's nothing. They're not very large. They're relatively pretty small. Like Nightingale itself is only a mile, 1 square mile, a little bit over a mile and a quarter. So pretty small. Like they're not big, but they're still good enough for a stopover, which is great. These are all uninhabited, and they're just pretty much are there for scientific purpose. They're not there for scientific purposes, but the only times people go over there are for science.
No, I gotcha. Yeah.
Great. Now, that being said, some of these islands actually, or at least one in particular, we're going to talk about because there is a bird on one of these islands that is only found on the 1 1/4 square mile island, Nightingale Island, is only found on that island. It is the Wilkins bunting. Okay?
Ooh, okay.
So this little bunting is it looks like an indigo bunting, but like a yellow-brown. So think, for everyone else out there who aren't bird nerds who don't know what an indigo bunting is, which is totally fine, think about the size of maybe like a blue jay or a cardinal or like some sort of small blackbird, and give it like a really big thick beak.
Okay.
That's generally what I'm trying to describe what a bunting kind of looks like. And that's generally a good idea of what a bunting is. They're slightly bigger birds with a really thick beak with a really big, thick beak used for either crushing seeds or big pits or anything like that for fruit. So they have to have strong beaks. This particular one is kind of a drab, olivey kind of green. It doesn't look like anything special, okay? It only eats the fruit of the filica or burrita, which is the only native tree that is on this island.
Jeez. Okay. I'm like, yeah. So when you talk about migration, I was like, does this bird migrate?
No.
But it sounds like no, because it only eats the food that's endemic to this island.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So there is only, and this particular bird just eats the fruit of this tree. Okay. Oh. However, those trees, the Phyllica arboreas, actually have been decreasing because there is an invasive insect that is actually causing it to, it secretes a liquid onto the tree and it actually eventually kills the tree.
Oh, no.
Which is bad when, you know, this island is the only place for these birds to live, only place that this tree lives. So it's a sap-sucking scale insect. It was accidentally introduced to the island by humans.
Of course.
Of course it was, right? That happens so many times. So these they secrete honeydew, which actually, this is the problem, is this little scale insect wouldn't be a problem, but that honeydew actually encourages the growth of a mold that eventually kills the tree. So it produces less and less fruit because it's fighting off this infectious mold, and then the tree dies, which is threatened to like destroy the forest that is on the Nightingale Island and thus this bird population as well.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So people were really mad about it. And this is, of course, not even counting the fact that hurricanes and things still go through the middle of the ocean there. So in 2019, a lot of the forest was actually destroyed because of some really big storms on this island. And there were only, once they went and did surveys from before and after, there in 2019, there were only about 120 breeding pairs left of the Wilkins bunting.
That's not great.
No, that's pretty bad. But don't worry, Kirk. There's a plan.
Okay.
We've got a plan. I don't have a
What's
plan.
the plan?
Science has a plan.
No, right.
I have no plan. So there is, these islands actually fall under the care of the United Kingdom. So there's a conglomerate of folks who are coming together to try to solve this. And one of those groups is the RSPB. Before anybody asks, no, I am not sure what that is. That stands for. It's the Royal Society of something. They only refer to themselves in all of the articles that I was seeing and looking at, and even their own website. They only refer to themselves underneath their acronym. So that's very helpful for everyone.
Okay, then.
It's very great. They also are with, so the RSBP, the Tristan da Cunha government, as well as a couple other organizations. They're all the Center for Agriculture and Bioscience International, Food and Environment Research Agency. They all came together and they're like, okay, what can we do to help control this? Because I think the mold is native and that's fine, but the insect is not. They don't want anything that could impact the birds or the trees or anything else on the island, but they do need to figure out how to control this insect. So they found a small parasitoid wasp called Microteres neri.
Okay.
We're going with it. I've been practicing my Latin. It actually prevents the small scale insects that are releasing the honeydew and encouraging the mold growth, prevents them from breeding, which is wild. So what these insects are able to do is they have been successful so far. So they've actually been looking at this. They've already done this. And so far the project is pretty promising. So So they released these little parasitoid wasps. And the whole idea is that they are able to eat them and prevent the little scale insects from mating. They introduce like their eggs into their system and prevent them from being able to reproduce. Wild. But not like the wildest thing we've heard when it comes to parasitoid wasps. Like, just go back to the crypt keeper wasp just a few weeks ago. My God. Yeah, that was a parasite of a parasite, which is wild. Now, in order to do this, again, this island is in the middle of the ocean and no one really goes there. So in order to figure this out, they actually set up, for some reason, they decided, they're going to set up a tree nursery. They also set up a tree nursery to help with the trees.
Okay.
So there is that too. So it's a couple of different available ways to do that, not just the parasitoid wasp. But they had to go, they had the parasitoid wasps in London is where they had the wasps. They collected them,
away. Okay.
brought them. Oh, just wait. And then what they had to do is they had to fly in a cool bag. They flew from London to Cape Town in a nice cool bag.
Okay.
And then they had to stay in a hotel room for a COVID quarantine.
Oh, no.
With the staff member.
Oh.
So they had to stay in there. And then they had to go then from Cape Town on a boat journey because you can't fly to this island. You had to go on a boat journey to Tristan where the temperatures drop below zero. They had to keep going. And then you had to go in on another boat to get to Nightingale Island. This took a month of time, Kirk.
Wow. And they had to keep
the
parasitoid wasps alive the whole time?
The whole time they had to keep as many as they possibly could. About 10% made it.
Okay.
Because this was because this was happening in like March, April of 2021.
Wow.
Where they released these kites.
Okay.
So in their defense, there was a lot happening.
Going on. Yep. Although, hey, look, if it was the middle of like the height of COVID and people were like, hey, do you want to go to one of the most remote islands in the world? I'm like, yeah. You know what? I do.
There.
Sign me up.
I'm in. Let's go. It'll be fun. So less than 10% of the wasps actually survived the trip, but they first released, and it looks like they've actually established a population on the island, which is so great. So far, there are, as of right now, the birds, it is still an ongoing process. This is still relatively recent. Right now, there's about anywhere from 60 to 90 pairs of Wilkins bunting on Nightingale. So, because the forest has reduced in size, but it should hopefully stabilize with the parasitoid wasps being introduced and the tree nursery and the plantings that will be happening to help with the trees. Hopefully it'll allow the buntings to stay and be alive. But wild time. This is just a little tiny wasp, and hopefully it will actually save this bird that only lives on this little island. But like, what a cool thing to be able to do, you know?
It's such it's so wild that, we have these species that live, like, are endemic is the term, like, live just in this one place, like one island, for example. And I've been doing it for a really long time, and then we come in and screw up one little thing. And so it's like kind of incumbent on us to fix it. And hopefully they have, or at least they can keep them, these things under control so that the population can survive. Because this is kind of something we screwed up and we need to fix.
Right. And the cool thing is they were really thoughtful about it, because oftentimes if you introduce, like you talked about the ash borers earlier, if you introduced something from where the emerald ash borer is from like something that eats it, it could negatively affect any of the other species.
Oh, yeah.
That are in our space.
You bring
at all.
something
like
in.
It could be like really
Yeah, you're
bad.
like, oh yeah, this kills the emerald ash borer, but turns out it also destroys the corn crop. Well, there's going to be some people who are tad bit upset because then you can never
Mad.
get rid of it. You go, oh, we can't grow corn in this state anymore, or soybeans, or whatever it is. Like they have to be so careful bringing something a biological control in because you can create far more harm than good. There's the famous Simpsons
Yeah.
episode about that where like the there's these lizards that take over Springfield and they're trying to get rid of them. And the solution, they're like, oh well, we're just going to release this mongoose. All these mongoose. I don't know what the plural of mongoose is. Mongooses.
Mongooses.
Yeah, into town, and they're gonna run and eat all the lizards. And Lisa's like, but you can't do that because then the mongoose will cause all this problem. And there's this whole list of like, well, we're gonna release this, which will eat that. And the final one is like, well, we're gonna release gorillas to eat the mongoose, whatever. And she's like, but what about all the gorillas? And they're like, ha. That's where we got you. Once winter comes, all the gorillas will die. And I was like, oh, jeez. I mean, you thought it through, but it's not great. So,
yeah. So, thankfully, they were very thoughtful about it. And it doesn't have the parasitoid wasp does not have any negative impacts on any other species on the island, which is great. So, 3 years ago, they were introduced, and hopefully, so far, it looks positive. But we're still checking in on this part of the project, and it's still a long way off. But hopefully we'll be able to save these lovely little birds.
Well, we will do an update, hopefully in like a couple hundred episodes.
Right. It would be great. All right. So my sources this week were the BBC had an article called "The Tiny Wasp Helping to Save a Rare Bird from Extinction" by Peter Ryan. The RSBP also had a great article posted in October of 2024. And then The Guardian is where I found this story in the first place. They had a lovely little article by Helena Horton. Thanks for bringing it to my attention.
Nice.
That's all I got for you today,
Kirk. That is
plenty.
Thanks so much for, thank you to you, and thanks to our listeners.
Yeah. Thanks to you, Kirk. This is great.
Great. Well,
I'll see you all next time.
Indeed. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks everyone for listening to today's show. Be sure to subscribe. New episodes drop every Wednesday, and we love sharing this strange world with all of our listeners. If you would be so kind as to leave us a 5-star review, that would be great. It lets other lovers of the strange discover the show. You can reach out to us on social media by searching for Strange by Nature Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can send us an email as well. Our address is contact@strangebynaturepodcast.com. If you want more information about the show, you can also check out our website, which is strangebynaturepodcast.com. Until next week, get outside, stay curious, and embrace the strange.